Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Allie, and today's program is going to talk about something that's near and dear to me, fry bread. So, for those of you who don't know, fry bread is a thing that you can find in indigenous communities in Indian country. And basically, it's a fried piece of dough. If you've ever had like an elephant ear or maybe a funnel cake, it's a little bit like that. Or if you're familiar with sopapillas, it's a little bit like that too. And everybody has like different recipes and everything. And you'll hear different names for it too, like bannock or galette. So it's a really interesting like thing that is in indigenous communities. So for today, I'm going to share my recipe with you guys and show you kind of how I make it. So before I get into sharing the recipe, I did want to share a little bit of history about it too. So, typically where you would run into this would be like maybe a powwow, and you could get it by itself. You could get it with cinnamon sugar and honey. You could even see it used as the base for a taco or pizza. It's really, really good in a bunch of different ways. And personally, we actually had it at my wedding with strawberries and strawberry shortcake stuff. It was really, really awesome. So, fry bread comes from historically the removal of indigenous peoples, though. So, as like different indigenous nations had to be moved from their communities into different ones, um, they were given staples. So, and these are staples that you might think of in like maybe today's contexts, which makes sense for now, but didn't make a lot of sense for indigenous communities back then. So you would see stuff like flour and sugar, whereas people were used to definitely not those things. So fry bread comes from trying to figure out how to use these things in a way that is nourishing for your body, even though flour by itself isn't necessarily the most nourishing thing. So it has kind of a long and complicated history, but these days it's something that is familiar and really important. So depending on who you ask, you'll run into different opinions about it. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up before we actually get into the recipe today. Okay, I will show you guys how the dough comes together and then how we do it in the kitchen. Okay, here are my ingredients. This is 1 cup of flour right here, and I have a little bit of salt, just a dash really. This is about a teaspoon of baking powder, and of course, my water. This is way more water than I will need. You guys will see that in a second. And then, of course, we are just mixing these dry ingredients together first. So you really don't want any like one kind of lump of any one ingredient. So really give it a good mix. Just speeding it up a bit so that you guys don't have to watch me mix for 5 minutes. But yeah, and then we are going to mix in some water. So really, when it comes to water, you really don't need more than like a half a cup max. The dough should be soft and not necessarily super sticky. So here is where I actually make a bit of a mistake. Future Allie, wishing that she were past Allie right now. So I add too much water here and it actually gets kind of liquidy. So the really nice thing about fry bread though is that you can fix this just by adding more flour. The ratio is not critical like it would be in something, say, like a croissant or maybe a loaf of bread. Here, we can just sort of mix it, get those lumps out, and then we can add more flour to make it into the thing that it needs to be. So you can see me trying to do that a little bit here and incorporating. The whisk eventually is going to not be necessary though. So this is me thickening up a little bit. Here, what I'm doing is I am dusting this with flour. Like any other kind of bread, you do want to, flour up your surface. We are going to knead this just a little bit. But again, like any other bread, you really do not want to do it for too long. And of course, take off your jewelry, okay? Big thumbs up. You do not want that on there. You're going to have flour in there for days. Okay, so pouring out my dough. It is way too liquidy. It looks like pancake batter. All right, almost there. So yeah, not using the whisk for this one. at first, adding in a little bit of flour up your hands, and again, discovering it's way too sticky. So for this one, I pulled out my bench scraper. You really don't need fancy tools, but I knew that this was going to help, and I'm literally using it to incorporate more flour into the dough until it's something that I can handle. So once again, you do not want your dough to be sticky, you do want it to be soft though. You'll see me just incorporating more flour, kneading it, but trying very hard not to handle it too much. Here, the dough is kneaded, it's not sticking to my hands anymore, and that's perfect. So I'm using my bench scraper to divide it into 4 pieces, about a cup of flour, and the ratios I gave you earlier, the dash of salt, the 1 teaspoon of baking powder. That'll get you about 4 servings. You can make these as big or as small as you want, but that's roughly how much you'll get out of 1 cup of flour and the amount of water that we used here. Okay, so if you are looking to feed a whole bunch of people, make a big batch. If not, keep it at this. Trust me, 1 piece will fill you up. I let it sit for a little bit, and now we're actually going to fry it. What you see me doing is testing the temperature of the oil. If you stick a wooden spoon into a pot of hot oil like I have here, and it starts to bubble, then that means that the oil is at 350, 360 degrees. So with the dough that I let rest for 30 minutes, I am stretching it out just a little bit. Some people want to roll it out. I just prefer to stretch it because I don't want to overwork it. And I really would like a big flat piece because that holds toppings a lot better. Carefully in the oil, put it down away from yourself. So this is mostly just speeding through the rest of this process, but it's about 2 minutes on either side. So you'll see me checking my watch from time to time. That first one I kind of splashed myself, so I just spared you all the sight of me splashing myself and I edited that out. So yeah, so again, using tongs, being careful, that's pretty important. I can't tell you how many times I've been burned making fry bread, ugh. But yeah, that's a beautiful color. That's exactly what we're looking for. So 2 more minutes on this side. Keeping in mind too that once it's actually done frying, then it'll actually darken up just a little bit more while it's drying too. So you can see that I have a plate there lined with some paper towels. Definitely necessary. Do not overgrease your fry bread. It's gross. And here too, I should mention that I'm only really using vegetable oil. Other people have different preferences. I've actually seen people use bacon fat before, which tastes incredible. I can't even begin to tell you guys. It tastes amazing. But my husband is a vegetarian, so vegetable oil it is. You'll also see people who do stuff like shortening, and some versions of fry bread, galette, or bannock are actually baked in the oven. So yeah, it just depends on what kind of taste you're going for. I like them fried. There's a phrase that's sometimes used in like crafting or jewelry making. It's pretty entertaining and I like it a lot, but it's sisters, not twins. That's definitely true of these pieces of fry bread. They're not all the same. This one has kind of a big pocket on the one side, so it's perfect if you are an Indian taco kind of person, or if you really want like just a big pocket of honey. Oh man, that kind of thing is so good. I will say though, just as a final note about my my dough extravaganza earlier, if any of my aunties see this video, you guys have no idea how bad I'm gonna get teased. It's gonna be so bad. Ugh. But again, just wanted to share a little family recipe. And this is something too, I had to watch. I didn't get this written down at all. I just kind of had to like sneak into the kitchen while my grandma and my mom made it. and then just kind of pick it up from there. A little bit of a trial by fire. And oof, hot grease once again. Be careful if you decide to make this, y'all. We almost had a massive issue right there, but I fixed it, so that's what that is. Then the finished product. Wow! Whoa! Whoa! Okay, so that's how fry bread comes together. So from here, we are very happy because we were able to have it with lunch and it was extremely tasty. But yeah, that's just a basic recipe. You'll find other things too, sometimes like milk or sugar, or like maybe people will let it sit for a little bit longer, and that's all okay. This is a family recipe and everybody's family makes stuff differently. So what I want you guys to think about is maybe a family recipe that's been passed down through your family, how maybe it's changed, and maybe if you can find any really cool artifacts like a really old recipe card that a grandma wrote down or something like that. That's always a lot of fun. So yeah, so for Native American Heritage Month, like this is something that I wanted to share with you guys as an Indigenous person. So one way that you can celebrate is by sort of diving back into your history and figuring out where food fits in. Okay? All right, so that's it. Please check out the description and the Native American Heritage Month page on DC Public Library's website for more information, more resources. Keep an eye out. There's some really wonderful stuff happening all around the system. And I will see you guys next time. So once again, thank you very much for joining me today. See you later.